Welcome everyone to part 3 of the baby crisis series. So in this part, we are getting to the meat of it. We are going to get to the master plan and the underlying model of what we discussed before. For a quick recap, what we saw is the baby crisis is threatening Western and Eastern civilization like no other crisis in the world. We are declining at unprecedented pace. And Elon, of all people, says it's the greatest threat to humanity right now. And he's absolutely right. He's not the only one saying it. If we don't have babies anymore, we are going to die out and cease to exist. And before that, we will have a very dreadful end because our economies are going to implode. Our national security is going to implode. It's going to be awful. Also, there is a personal aspect to it that is very, very sad. 45% of women, young women, 25 to 44, are projected to be childless and single by 2030, which is basically very soon. So this is sad. That's a tragedy because people don't want that. They want babies. We also understood and analyzed what the problem is. The problem is that women are facing financial risks that make having babies a no-no, right? They don't know how to pay for them. They don't know how, if they could pay for them, if someone would pay for them, they don't know how they can trust that person. And the whole thing is also very inconvenient because how do you even find that person and how do you make sure you're mitigating the risk? For a young woman of one, that is an insurmountable obstacle, right? So then we found out in the second part of the series that there is a solution to it. It's a very simple solution. You create a financial infrastructure that provides women with total safety and pays them, makes being mom a career where they get as much paid as in a normal career. But instead, they can stay home and have a lot of children. And guess what? A lot of women would totally opt into that. And we also know who's going to pay for it. Men. For the men, they have a great deal because they want that anyway. They're willing to spend all their money on their families. But right now, they don't have access to anything because there is no deal structure in place between men and women. So women say, I don't trust you. I don't know if you can do that. Like, I can opt into that. And men cannot invent this entire infrastructure they needed. Once they have it, they're happy to buy it. Very simple. Now, if we do that, we save Western civilization. We save our biggest problem, our biggest personal problem for millions or tens of millions of people. And we know that everyone is going to be happy. It's going to be very happy with it. And that there's an enormous economic opportunity connected to it. In this video, our job is to convert and translate that into a master plan. And every master plan starts, of course, with a financial model, because without financial models, you can't do anything. So I put a little effort into building out a model that looks at the financials and what that all actually would mean if we get to that deal structure that I think everyone actually wants. Maybe not everyone, but 80 to 90% of men and women would love that thing. Men would love to pay for their families, and women would love to get paid the same or more than in a career. So let's see how the numbers pan out and what that actually means. So I have some basic inputs. I'm not going to bore you too much with inputs, but we assume a 40% tax rate, right? We assume certain life costs, expenses. I put the children to not too expensive, $650 per child in average over 20 years. That some people might say that's low, but you have to consider there's no childcare cost because now we have a mom at home. And college, I'm taking out of the equation for now because we will have a much better solution by then. Believe me, that's a different video. But college costs will definitely go down to zero or negative. So very important, we are going to get also to some savings rates. This is a very important part of the equation, like how much are you going to make on your savings as a woman and as a man, it doesn't matter, both. How much do you make on your capital stack? And how much do you need to make on your capital stack? How much will you make and how much do you need to hit these targets? And then you have a little bit a calculation how much the woman should actually make, right? So basically net income of $5,000 after taxes. Then there's some housing in here. So this is a pretty average salary, gross income, $7,500 per month. You pay 25% taxes on that. So you have 5,600 left. That's like after college, right? First job for the first 10 years or something average. You have monthly housing costs of 1,800 that can be taken out of the equation potentially. Then you have some disposable income, you have consumption, and you have a savings rate. Very important. I mean, most women actually don't have that savings rate, which is a big problem for them. but we can solve that too. So then you get some required financing here that I put into the equation. I'm actually saying you get 25% less than in that level of career because you're getting some additional bonuses here. So these are all reasonable numbers. So basically, if you are a woman and you have the option to get $2,869 tax-free per month in cash, and you don't have to pay for housing, would that be enough to incentivize you to drop your freaking career? And the answer is probably yes for most, depending what else they get. I will tell you what else they get. Now it's getting very interesting. So first of all, what is the big picture deal here if we model this out? A very important part of my model is frugality. You want to be a good family that is not crazy and doesn't spend all their money. So part of that financial infrastructure deal that will pay you as a woman $2,869 a month after tax in cash and after housing, because housing is taken care of, that's a good chunk. But we will also make sure that 50% of that you are not going to spend. This is going to be saved for you in your name. You control. You don't control it completely, but it's your money. It's kind of a trust fund where this is getting saved per month. And that creates a savings account for you, because the objective here is to make you independent of the payer as quickly as possible. And to get independent of a payer, you need to become a capitalist, and you become a capitalist by having a lot of capital and making good returns on the capital. So the objective here is actually to pay you that, but to take half of it out, put it into a trust fund in your name that accumulates that money at a certain savings rate and return rate of 15% a year. And the funny thing is, if you do the math on that, you're getting $34,000 a year in your savings account that appreciates at 15% per year. Actually at more, but we'll get into that in a second. And what does it all mean? It means when you're done with your job 20 years later, regardless of how many kids you have, but let's say you have 4 kids or 5 kids. You start, and 20 years later, you had your 5 kids, your mom with 5 kids, you succeeded. This is the amount of money you will have in your savings account, well, in your money management account. $4.7 million. So in my model, the mom's job is that you get a certain amount of money, 2,800 something per month, but half of that is being put into savings. And when you're done with your career, with your mom career, you have 4 or 5 beautiful kids, and you have $4.7 million that you own, completely regardless of your man. That has nothing to do with a man. That's the outcome. That's the deal structure. Well, this is my first take on it, but this deal structure gets to 4.7 million. I think if you go on a college campus and ask 21-year-old girls, would you do this? They would probably say, well, at least I'm going to think about it, because I'm not confident that with 40, I would otherwise have $4.7 million. So to make the math a little bit more interesting, I also had a start and end age here. So very simple math. It takes you 20 years to make your $4.7 million as a woman, as a mom. And now the equation becomes very interesting, because if you start this career of being a mom, you started with 21, which is nowadays considered very early. You're done with 41. You have 4.7 million with 41 years and your children done. If you start with 25, well, you have your 4.7 million at 45. If you start with 30, well, you have it with 50. Now, why is this so important? Because it flips around a very important dynamic here. It flips around the dynamic that becoming a mom early becomes incrementally or exponentially more attractive. Because if you're a woman, now you have a different equation in your mind. You're thinking like, wait. I can have, let's say, 4 or 5 kids. Maybe you can have 6 kids. I don't even care. Like, whatever. You can have 2 kids, but the kids are independent of that number. So you can have all your kids that make your life fulfilled. So, when you're old, you have all these great people that you raise that are taking care of you, because you can never trust a man, right? Don't trust a man. Maybe your man is still around. Maybe another man is around. That's all fine. But you will never find a man who loves you as much as your children do. That's why children are better. It's a better bet than men. Men are just the cherry on top. It's an optional thing. So if you are 21, say, wait, should I just wait? I wait until I'm doing some stupid little Starbucks job or a Facebook marketing job or something, and do this for 4 years, and then I start my mom career. But then I get my 4.7 million with 45, not with 41. Or I also get my children later. So that makes no sense, because it's now smarter to start early, get the job done early, get the money early, and then you are completely liberated, because then with 41 or 45 or whatever, you sit on 4.7 million. You've done your mom job, which is very important for yourself, because now you have great kids. And now the world is your playground when it actually makes sense. You're financially fully independent. You have all your children grown up. And now you can do all the amazing things you always wanted to do, right? That is actually the right order of things. Don't do all the amazing things in your childbearing, when you're childbearing age, and then have no money and be too old, and then to have children, then you miss out on everything. It's much smarter to flip the whole equation around. First, you have all the children, then you have all the money and do all the stuff. Beautiful. And you see how much less attractive it is. Why would I do this with 30 and be done with 50 if I can do it with 21 and be done with 41? I want the 4.7 million with 41, not with 50. That's simple. So you create the right incentive system here. Okay, you get the point. Now, for women, this is a deal. You will get a lot of women on board. A lot of women will get on board with that. So the question is, what about men? Men are going to pay for it. We're going to build the future, and men are going to pay for it. So you're going to say, probably you're mostly dudes watching, right? Because I'm a Tesla robots channel. I think we have 90% men here. Maybe some women tune in here, I hope, because it's very important for you. So what about the men? The men are going to say, this sounds amazing for the woman 4.7 million, but it scares me a little bit because it seems like I have to pay for this. No, we have Elon. Elon helps us make a lot of money. Elon is a very important part of this equation, because a very important number here, let's zoom in, is this number. This number is what I assume we actually make per year on our capital, 30%. It's very important. This number, 15%, is the target rate for the woman that you need for the woman to actually receive 4.7 million. Well, 30% play a little bit of a role. If you change this number to 15, so there's no delta in there. Let's see what that does. I think in this current setting, it doesn't change much. Well, the woman ends up with $3.5 million. So if you only make 15% per year, the woman, instead of 4.7, gets 3.5 million. But the woman is not the main beneficiary of that higher number. The woman relies on the 15% capital returns per year. The men profit from this much more if we get it higher, right? As you will see in a second. So at 30%, let's take a look at the men, and let's make it simple. I have a after-tax payment here. All that stuff is, by the way, tax-free for women because it's gift tax. There is no tax. It's a gift. That's the design here. And if any US state doesn't play along, they're out. Then move out of the state. But a lot of states are fine with it. So you give a gift to your girlfriend and your baby mama, and that's it. She doesn't pay taxes on it. What's important in the contractual framework is that there is no requirement for her to do anything. It's very important. It's not like, oh, you have to have that many babies and do that stuff for me and then you get paid. No, this is not a salary. It's a gift. That's very important for the IRS. And it's also important, spiritually for the whole setup, because we shouldn't put women in a position. This is more, I always, people ask me, oh, is now the man, if this is a career for a woman, is the man their boss? Like, no. Their boss, there is no boss because it's a career, but the man is more like an investor than a boss. And if you have ever founded a startup or a CEO and you have investors, they're not your boss. They can kick your butt a little bit, but they're also heavily dependent on you to do your job. So it's a different relationship. I would describe that more, the woman is the founder and the man is the investor, kind of. That's more the relationship. So anyway, we have this great table here that tells you the number of kids you want to have, because the kids are the cost driver for the man now. So the number of kids you want to have between 1 and 8, 1 is not recommended, of course. And you choose your kids and you have your table and you know how much you have to pay. But that's after tax, of course, right? So 8 kids are actually not that expensive. They are 172,000 a year you have to pay, including the woman pay and the household costs. So I have a little list here that takes into consideration the housing costs and everything, so you can calculate that. So what that says is, here you have your table, and here you have the pre-tax table, which is more important. That's your actually income you need. And here's an interesting thing. Because we have an excess return rate over the savings that goes to the woman, you actually have to pay less and less with every incremental year. Because this savings account generates money for you, the man, so you have to pay less. And as you can say, if you have 1 kid per year for a long time, let's say you want 5 kids, you have to pay $195,000, or you have to make $195,000 pre-tax. The next year with child number 2, you have to make 200,000, then 203,000, 204,000, 204,000, 202,000. Then you have 6 kids. And then if you keep it stable at 6 kids, you know that your payments are going down, 189, 174, 156, and so on and so forth. Isn't that magical? And so in year 13 with 6 kids, you only pay your gross income only needs to be 41,000. That's not even taking into consideration your own savings and your own capital gains. So this model is very nice and disciplined because it's based on a very high returning core asset management function that is driven by Tesla and other stocks. And of course, the stock we are creating here with this system, which is much bigger than Tesla in terms of returns. So it is based on a conviction that we can generate 30% a year for a very long time after fees and taxes. And that is very beautiful. So this is very surprising because do you know how many people can actually afford or make 200,000 more? It's 10% of the US population, right? It's roughly 6 million single men who make 200,000 or more a year in the United States. So this is a business model that appeals to 6 million people right now. And this whole thing is not even optimized for anything, right? This is assuming the lack of civilizational infrastructure across the board that determines these high costs. Once we build our own cities, once we fix our whole health and food supply chains, this goes down. But right now, this is assuming no tricks. You're just living in that imperfect world. That's what you have to pay. So it's a surprising amount of money on the low end here that you need. That makes a lot of men qualified for this system. So it's very, very beautiful. And that's kind of the plan. So, of course, this is a complex model. We have to talk more about it, but it tells you a little bit the big picture. 4.7 million is the incentive, the carrot for women to take moms as their career. They will get 4.7 million after 20 years, and in between they get a decent pay. For men, it's affordable because 200,000, I'm not saying for everyone, but for the top 10%, this is not a problem. And over time, we can bring this down. I think we can cut it in half within 5 years. And that opens it up to the top 20%. So you see where this is going. It's a beautiful model. And now to wrap it up, because we're talking about a master plan, how we make it all happen, there's a business model behind it. I will not go into too many details of the business model, but as you can imagine, if you do this, you are talking about an enormous amount of money you will make. Just to give you some ideas, there are 2 income streams for the business. Number 1, there's a fee you charge. You charge 3.75% on each side. No woman is going to complain if they get $2,000 if you take out $70. They're not going to complain. You organize, you give them the app, you give them everything. You do everything. And then there's an asset management fee of 0.9% of assets under management. That's ridiculously low. We could probably charge more. Not 2%, that's a ripoff, but 0.9%, no incentive allocation. So we just charge 0.9% on assets. Even with very conservative numbers, here I basically say only 2 million single men that would qualify. I think this number is closer to 6 million. But what it tells you is, even after 5 years with reasonable growth rates, here you have the number of dating couples in the system, 10,000 growing to 810,000 year 5. Because think about it, think what we are doing here. Imagine you launch this thing. Everyone has babies. Everyone finds perfect partners. You're going to take over the dating market very quickly because now you have a no-nonsense solution that actually works. The number of committed couples, you're creating 405,000 committed couples by year 5. Number of firm couples, 200,000. And where's the number of the baby impact? You will produce 447,000 babies within 5 years. 447,000 babies produced. It's amazing. You will produce 17 billion in savings for women. So the women in the system will own $17 billion. That's pretty good. And you will make a lot of fees. Your asset management fees will be 156 million in year 5. It's very good. And 175 million in fees. You can also see the asset management to fee ratio, right? Of course, that ratio goes up and it's nearly 1-on-1 in year 5. So over time, the asset management will be the main income, not the fees, because this goes up exponentially. And my prediction is whoever solves the dating problem will become the world's biggest asset manager in no time, because you will manage the assets of the wealthiest American families. It's that simple. Because now asset management is interconnected deeply with babies and family management. So it's beautiful. It also fixes all these problems that people tend to be very irresponsible about their savings and their asset management and everything. Here you roll it up from the back end and say, like, look, we are not here to manage your assets. We are here to produce babies. But in order to produce babies, we need very good asset management. And we are not just going to manage your assets. We are going to generate your income from your man. We will collect the money, split it half into your savings, into asset management, half into your consumption. And then we are off to the races, because everyone's going to say, oh, sure, yes, sign me up. Give me 4.7 million in 20 years. So as you can see, the more you think about this, the more it becomes clear that this is very smart, because it solves the problem and it creates an enormously attractive business. Maybe the most attractive business ever invented, because you get rewarded as an entrepreneur or as a set of entrepreneurs and investors here to solve humanity's greatest problem, which is babies. It makes people happy. It makes men happy. It makes women happy. The men are going to pay for it. The women have amazing careers. Each woman makes 4.7 million in 20 years in actual savings generated, has reasonable consumption in between, has beautiful children, and you get paid for it. Because this is the world's most valuable service. So that's the master plan. I think it's a very good plan. All these numbers can be refined. The underlying infrastructure will be significant. You need asset management. We didn't even talk about insurance, which is my favorite piece of this. This, to take the risk completely out, there will be insurance in this. And from there, I think we have the core, the basis to build a new civilization, to build the target state where people are rich, happy, they have a lot of cute little babies, and all that is missing to wrap it all up into the perfect state are the two remaining big opportunities, which is health and cities. But we get to this in separate series. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope that was inspiring. Hit me up on X, hit me up in the comments if you have any ideas about this. I'm going to pursue this very aggressively, because I do think this is the greatest opportunity in the world. And I do think all the other greatest opportunities, like health, food, medicine, and of course, the cities of the future, are to some extent extensions of this, because once people have babies, everything falls into line, right? Everything falls into place, because now they want the right things. They want better food supply. They want more convenient cities. They want all the things, because now they need it. Now they have a purpose. It's beautiful. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think, and see you very soon.